Connecticut Politics Live with Joe Aguirre and Michelle Botello. I am Joe Aguirre. Michelle is back from her long extended vacation, and we'll talk a little bit about what you were doing coming up after 5:30. We're going to switch some things up tonight. Normally, we would break you off the headlines to start the show. Instead, our very special guest tonight, the state Senate Majority Leader, Bob Duff, will be joining us. Bob, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bob.
Bob, can you hear us? Now, Bob, why can't Bob hear us? Everything was going great.
We were talking before.
Yeah.
It's about. Hey, Bob, can you hear us?
Yeah, we literally were just chit-chatting with Bob, and now we apparently have lost him. That's what happens when you break format.
Right. That's right.
No, anyway, listen, this was quite an election.
These midterms were very interesting.
Yes,
it was so fun to watch. And Bob, if you can hear us, congratulations. It'd be nice. Maybe he pops back out and in again.
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting. Maybe he pop out and come back in.
Okay.
Yeah, well, so part of the reason I wanted to talk to Bob tonight was because his campaign things got pretty vicious in his district, and he was being attacked by a former journalist who I don't even know what this guy's doing now. He's like a professional Twitter troll.
What do you remember? I don't know his name. What is his name? Do you remember?
George Colley. There he is. Bob, you got us now?
I hear you.
All right. Perfect. So, Bob, by the way, congratulations on a really hard-fought campaign. You were being attacked by just about everybody in your campaign. So credit to you. Also, I don't know if George Colley lost his mind or if he's a professional Twitter troll now, but any idea where that nonsense was coming from?
Oh, I don't know. I don't really think too much about him. Apparently, there's a lot of people out there who think more about me and spend their time thinking about me than I think about them.
Right.
So it is what it is. And, it's just kind of interesting how many people, how much of their lives are spent based on what I do, and it's silly, but I guess that's the nature of politics these days.
Well, that's what Twitter's about.
Well, it's
Bob, their lives literally revolve around what I do. Which is right.
Bob, you and I talked a whole bunch of times during the campaign on WICC radio, and we talked about the rhetoric and we talked about how nasty things were getting out there. The Republicans really were running on nothing other than the Democrats have failed us, and no one, clearly looking at the numbers, nobody bought into that at all.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, we picked up a seat in the state Senate. So we're now 24-12. We came very, very close in at least 3 races. Frankly, if some of the district lines had been drawn a little differently, we could have been up to like 27, because the margin was just a few hundred votes between 3 different seats. So, clearly the people of the state of Connecticut were voting Democratic. And the folks, some of the Republicans won by the hair on their chinny chin chin. So, what we heard a lot about during on election day and leading up to election day was people thought that the state was in a good place, that we were doing good things. They liked the way Governor Lamont handled COVID, and all, they felt that he was speaking in an honest way, and all of us were. And so, and they were also very upset over the loss of rights, the loss of reproductive rights, the loss of our democracy. You and I talked about that, Joe, quite a bit before. They were upset over gun violence. And, here we are again, with gun violence in Colorado. And before that, we've had, mass shootings all over the place. And, it's just those, and the Republicans offer no solutions. They just try and scare you. They just basically try and tell you what you should be afraid of. And they're so worried about Hunter Biden's laptop that they're not thinking about gas prices, inflation, reproductive rights, those kind of things.
Were any of the cities that you that represent, were they redistricted at all, or?
Well, yeah, I had actually in redistricting, and this is the first time actually I've been on the redistricting commission. It happens every 10 years based on the census.
Right.
And even though Trump tried to do his best to screw up the census, and I think in some ways a lot of people were uncounted, here in Connecticut, we I think did the best we could. Our population increased. And a lot of people, moved into Connecticut during the pandemic. So we caught some of that, but not all of that in the census because of the way when the census was closed up. But in Connecticut, anyway, in our state Senate districts, we represent around 100,000 people. And so the low end of that is 95,000 and the high end of that is 125. So you have to be within that range. And a lot of times, like for me anyway, I was over the number, the 100,000 by quite a bit. So I had to lose. I still have all of Norwalk, but I lost a little bit of Darien. And then the 26th district, which is next to me, I'm the 25th, picked up part of Darien to get into Stamford because Stamford had to lose their state senator, Billy Miller, had to lose a lot of people there. She was way over because of population growth there. So she had to lose people as well. And that's why you have different lines now because of the redistricting.
So you don't think it hurt or helped you? Sorry.
No.
I think it helped in some ways. It definitely helped because some of the votes in District 1 in Darien, they were not necessarily Democratic friendly. But I had always actually come pretty close in Darien. I'd gotten a high of like 48, almost 49% to low of sometimes 33%. But 80% of my district, 85% was always in Norwalk anyway. So that's kind of my bread and butter. But you represent both communities and you still do the best you can.
Right.
So leading up to the election, I had a few interviews with Laura Devlin. And first of all, I want to ask, but this is a two-parter. He got crushed in this election. I mean, running for governor for 4 years. Somehow he managed to do worse. But Laura Devlin and I were talking, and I was talking about all the rhetoric and how unnecessary some of that rhetoric was. And she had the audacity to say, we can't survive another 4 years of Ned Lamont and the Democrats live on the air. And I was like, Laura, come on. Democrats have been running the state for 40 years. What are you talking about? Like that doesn't even make sense that we in some, like, what's going to happen to the state? Listen, I understand taxes are high. Democrats like to spend money. That's a thing. You guys are obviously well aware that inflation is high and the prices are up. And I know you're doing as much as you can to combat that. But again, it's like these people are somewhat clueless. And I think they think their entire base is stupid people. And I think they're not giving their constituents enough credit.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. And I think some of the rhetoric, like you said, is unfortunate. I will say on your just the line you used about Democrats like to spend, I would actually say that the Democrats have been real nationally and statewide, and here in Connecticut have been the real fiscal conservatives. Because if you look at our budgets over the last how many years, we're the first. John Rowland, by the way, went to prison twice.
Yes, yes, he did.
And Jody Rell is now an unaffiliated voter, and so and John Rowland never paid into the pensions ever, and he made this crazy deal with the state employees to basically mortgage the future so he can get reelected. But the Democrats are the ones who actuarially paid down the pensions for the last 12 years now in a row. We're the ones who cut $2 billion of discretionary spending over the last, the last decade or so. We have the fewest amount of state employees now because we're not filling the positions per capita since at least the 1950s, and it could go down to the 1930s soon. So our state employee workforce is like bare bones. And we made 2 employee contracts with state employees that have saved about $40 billion over 20 years. We also have seen bond rating increases by the rating agencies on Wall Street. We just had one yesterday with Standard & Poor's, and we've seen them over and over again the last few years. So Republicans saw everything go in reverse. We're the ones who have actually built the foundation back again and cut spending and cut our employee workforce. Now, it doesn't mean we haven't had to raise taxes occasionally during tough times, but that is necessary in order to save funding for education and save money for municipal aid, so it doesn't raise more property taxes. But Republicans do actually control most of the local communities, local towns, and those of us on the statewide level are fond of saying, hey, look, why don't you all do some things more cooperatively, whether it's regionally, cooperatively, however you want to call it, because, you know, Connecticut's about maybe a little bit smaller than the size of LA County, and they do things one time. We do things 169 times or 162 times. So when people complain about their taxes, you generally don't complain about state income taxes. They generally don't complain about the sales taxes. Our sales tax is right in the middle. Most states have income taxes. They will complain about property taxes. And the reason why they complain about property taxes, we don't have county government, which is fine. It's in our Constitution. But we tend to repeat things that many other states do one time. We tend to do it, you know, many, many more times over and over and over again, which it creates duplicity.
And so you guys you're doing a special session. Has this been determined? We're going to look at gas tax, the LIHEAP, and some other things. When can we expect you guys?
We should be going into special session on Monday. The House will go first. We'll go second. We're talking about continuing the gas tax holiday until the end of December, to the beginning of the year, then going back 5 cents a month after that. So it'll be 5 cents more, then 5 cents more, than, you know, until you get to 25 cents. We're looking to put more money into low-income housing, low-income heating assistance, and also Operation Fuel. You know, obviously people we know are hurting. Generally, that's always been a federal program, LIHEAP. And if the feds don't come through with more money, we'll put in additional money. We're going to put in more money for Operation Fuel, which is a nonprofit, but they help quite a bit of people. We're also looking at pandemic pay as well for folks, because there was a lot of people who applied for that, and then that just took the amount of money that people will get to very small amount. So looking to increase that pot as well. So I think there's some good things going on, but you know, at this point, you know, we'll just do it in one day, Monday, and hopefully, you know, help people where they need it.
So, Bob, you know, Stefanowski, during this midterm cycle, he proposed to overturn the 8-30G housing statute. You know, I understand, you know, it's needed, but what do you say to those who say, well, you know, this statute is causing, you know, affordable housing crisis in the sense of large populations in our cities? You know, we have increased, you know, negative impacts with transportation, public transportation, with education. What do you say to those people that talk about that?
Right. Well, Bob Stefanowski, if he was elected governor, never would have gotten 8-30G repealed as governor, because the urban legislators never would have let that happen. There wouldn't be the votes to do it. So that, you know, that was an empty campaign promise that he made. Okay. You know, let's look at it this way. Affordable housing is an economic driver in the state of Connecticut, just like good transportation is and like good education is. They're all economic drivers in the state of why people want to move here or stay here. So you think about affordable housing, a lot of people equate that as like low income housing or projects or things like that, which really is not the case. You think about affordable housing, you think about housing for recent college grads who are looking for their first place to live, or senior citizens who want to downsize from their houses and they need a place to live. And I always say to people, I'm like, you know, it's like a place like Darien. You got people who work there at CVS, Dunkin' Donuts, or wait staff at restaurants. They shouldn't have to live 45 minutes to an hour away in order to serve you. There needs to be a diverse housing stock in every single community across the state of Connecticut. And we have these zoning laws that prevent any kind of rational or realistic development in communities. And that harms our entire state. And that's why, you know, you think about why there's been low population growth for so long. One of the reasons is the lack of housing. And college kids, when they get out there looking for a job, they're going to look where they can afford to live someplace. And if they can't afford Connecticut, they're going to go someplace else. We need to keep them here. We spend a lot of money educating them. So that's why affordable housing is important. And that's why it's important to have diverse housing stock in every single community. Now, a city like Norwalk or Hartford or New Haven, Bridgeport, Stamford, we have over 10% affordable housing. So we're exempt from 8-30G. But you've got other communities like Darien, like Westport or Wilton or Weston or probably Farmington, any of the towns you can name that don't have 10%. And that's where, people are opposed to it. They say it's been a failure. It hasn't done anything. I wouldn't really say that that's true. I think what needs to happen more, the local.
Did we lose Bob? Uh-oh.
Looks like he's frozen up for a
froze.
moment.
He froze.
And on the federal level and on the local level for affordable housing, because again, there's a lot of stress out there, and you equate a lot of the stress to housing insecurity, food insecurity, transportation issues. That's why I'm so glad we did the free buses, because people have said in this difficult time with high inflation, thank you for making the buses free. I don't know what I would have done without it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that have been actually utilizing the bus system of late, and
it's been a complete success.
Right. The other thing, and I apologize for what I said earlier, I just meant historically speaking, right? Tax and spend liberals. That's the idea. But no. It's funny because there were so many people that talked about Ned Lamont and Bob Stefanowski, and I was like, Ned actually pointed out that Bob and Rob Hoiteling, the independent, were both looking to burn through that rainy day fund pretty quick. And it was Ned Lamont who was like, no, going to sit on some of this money. We're not just going to go ahead and spend it. We have it if we need it. And I'm sure, listen, if things get bad, the option is there. The state controller's report says there's now $6.1 billion in there. It's a rainy day fund for emergency situations. We still have an operating budget that we're using, right? You guys are going to go in there Monday. You're going to figure some things out. But knowing that reserve is in there, that it's full, that we're paying down the pensions. And, again, I think most people, and you and I talked about this a lot, Bob. And by the way, Bob said to me multiple times when we talked, he didn't think a red wave was coming. Obviously never in Connecticut, but around the country. And you nailed that too, Bob.
Thank you for remembering.
To your credit, of course. The last time we talked, I was like, oh, poor Bob. And you were so right about that. I think Americans, by and large, and people in Connecticut saw, as you said at the top of the show, these guys are thinking about Hunter Biden's laptop. They never came out with a plan on how they would fight inflation, which, by the way, has gone from a 40-year high of 9.4 down to 7.7. So we're already trending in the right direction, right? And I think of the American people thinking about how extremist these guys tend to be, and looking at the results that Democrats have already done in trying to get inflation down, they thought, let's stick with this thing. It's working.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I agree with 100%. And thank you for remembering about my election prediction, because I just did not see it. I just did not see it. And I kept tweeting out about it too, that I just don't see it. And the data shows something completely different. Now, we all could have been wrong. I'm glad I was right. But I knew that I had a feeling that those polls that came in the last 2 weeks were, they're just flooding the field, flooding the zone, I guess, with bad polls. So, because that's not what I heard. And granted, Connecticut's a little different. I just didn't see it though.
Yeah.
It seemed even nationally too, though. Exit polls, while people were obviously concerned about the economy, abortion was hot on everybody's mind, as you suggested it would be. And when they finally got to the ballot, and it was a matter of choosing, what are these guys going to do? The Democrats, we kind of know what they're going to do, but if we put the Republicans in charge, yikes. And I think that's what won the day.
Well, look what they've already said, right? They've already talked about it in the majority. First words out of their mouth, Hunter Biden's laptop. It's like, and it reminds me of the old West Wing, first season of West Wing, where it's like secret plan to fight inflation. It's still secret. We don't know about it.
Right.
Because they don't have a plan, So anyway, Michelle, you were going to say something. I apologize.
Oh, no, it's okay. I just want to say, I know we have a few minutes left, but you have a proven record, obviously. And I'm so glad you came. But what do you see Connecticut in the future? How do you see Connecticut in the future?
Well, I see great things for Connecticut. Really, I mean, we're well positioned now. Like I said, we've and Joe, you talked about it too, and I didn't mention the the full rainy day fund. We're paying down pension debt like crazy right now, which is great. The volatility cap was a Democratic idea, as much as the Republicans like to take credit for that. So I think that when we were going through some of the difficult times, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I said to people, I like, just have to be patient. I said, we're rebuilding this place. It's, anytime you're in construction, it looks terrible until it's done. And then it looks nice. And I think the state of Connecticut looks pretty nice right now. You've got a highly educated workforce. We're investing in our transportation. We're investing in our cities. Companies are moving in. We've had a number of startups here in Connecticut, a record number of startups.
Yeah, that's been wonderful.
Great job growth
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. FinTech is here. Insurance tech is here. And so, as long as we can keep, again, great schools, we focus on transportation, we focus on housing. All those things are really, really important to building a great state. And we can't, I think what happened probably during, Weicker, I mean, I was a little young for this, so I'm kind of going off history, but, Weicker was trying to clean up a big mess. And then I think Roland and Rel, just basically we're just riding on our coattails here, there's just on our good looks and charm. And then sooner or later that runs out, we all get a little older. And so we had to fix things like the pensions that had been ignored for 70 years. And then, put ourselves back out there again. And I think that's what we're doing right now. And that's why I think we look so good. And the fact of the matter is that, people don't like to lose their rights. They don't like to lose rights that they've had for 50 years. It's interesting. There was an op-ed in I think it was in the Hartford Courant about people who moved from Colorado to Connecticut. And then I posted that, I tweeted that out. And a number of people contacted me saying they're moving from other states to Connecticut too, because they like the culture here. They like the politics here. They like they feel freer here than some of the other states where, they talk about freedom. But if you don't agree with them, you're not free, that kind of stuff. So I think we got a great state. I think we got a great future ahead of us. So very bullish.
By the way, everybody should be following this guy on Twitter at Senator Duff. He's Bob, you're always out there. You're always out in the community. I feel like you're a very heavily invested politician in this state. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate what you do. You're always very generous with your time. We come on, we have these great conversations, and I walk away always feeling better about things after we talk.
I appreciate that. Thank you. It means a lot. But I thank you for giving me the platform to do that.
Oh, you're welcome anytime.
Last thing, we had talked about New Haven, the New Haven schools, and the terrible test scores for those third graders. I know a lot of federal money has gone into there. Is that something you guys can look into? Because I mean, these kids are like 12, 15% reading level. You look at Hartford, Bridgeport, Waterbury, you combine those centers, about 40% of all of Connecticut students. Connecticut by and large has great schools, and we've done very well. Where the national average test scores dropped a little bit, we actually kind of held our own, so we're looking good. But in the cities, the money's there, but they're not spending it right. Is that something you guys can look into?
Well, I think we are. I think, places like Norwalk and Stanford did pretty well because it's our urban centers, but there's also there's some wealth here so that, the kids can get the Chromebooks or other types of things. Right. Places like Bridgeport, the kids were being sent home with packets of paper, and that can't happen. New Haven, our Senate president's from New Haven, Senator Looney, and I'm sure he can speak to that for sure. As to, solutions, I think the superintendent just left. So they might be on a search for somebody new who can come in. But some of this stuff is I know New Haven has a lot of students who are transient, and that creates some of the problem. You have, again, a lot of economic stress there. And it's, being an urban area, but you gotta, as a superintendent and board of ed, you've got to work to create success no matter what the conditions are. And
absolutely, there's so many. I mean, we have great teachers. It's the bureaucracy at the top, unfortunately. So that'll be great. Our students deserve better.
Absolutely. And again, the state cannot survive or thrive without kids graduating school. We need the workers. So think of your own self-interest of the fact that we need to have kids who are excelling and proficient and ready to go for our own sake, to keep the economy going and keep the great state that we love going. And we can't afford to lose one of these kids, nor should we. It's morally wrong, but if you don't want to think about it in moral terms, think about it in economic terms. And it helps everybody by having these kids ready and prepared for college or career.
Yeah, that's great.
Bob, as always, appreciate the time. State Senate Majority Leader, Senator Bob Duff, as he said on Twitter, at Senator Duff. I know you got to go. We appreciate your time. Michelle, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back with the headlines. Again, big thank you to Bob Duff.
Thank you, Senator.
CT Politics TV and the Connecticut Taxpayers Union present Unaffordable America with Daniel Kent Newmeyer, Joe Patrina's band Little House, focusing on Connecticut.
Now get yourself ready, go cat go. Ooh, yeah.
Entertaining and taking an educational look at nonpartisan issues of affordable living in America.
Born in a land where we wave 'em high.
All points of view are welcome.
And we got blue angels climbing in the sky. I'm the luckiest guy in America. I'm the luckiest man born in America.
Join the Connecticut Taxpayers Union right now at ctpolitics.tv.
Born in America.
We are back here on Connecticut Politics Live with Joe and Michelle. I like Bob Duff. I really do.
Great. He really is great.
A good guy, very knowledgeable, and always very honest in his assessment. And I got to tell you, Michelle, like I said, I just talked to him a couple weeks before the election, and he said, Joe, I don't see a red wave coming. And all the numbers I was looking at, I was like, okay, Bob. And boy, he was certainly onto something there. So,
and I like how you stated too. It's true. You kind of talk to him and you kind of feel better about things.
You do, right? He's a very positive guy. I will say that. But, listen, there's so much rhetoric that goes around. And, again, I said, the tax and spend Democrats. And he was quick to point out that, that hasn't necessarily been the case of late.
Right.
That they're trying to rein in the spending a little bit because they have to. And again, just today we found out $6.1 billion in the rainy day fund. So we're in good shape right now. And I think the people of Connecticut, people recognize that. And like I said, look, they've got a special. Well, you'll do the headlines in a minute talking about that special session. Yep. Again, if they can't figure things out just within the operating budget, we should be fine because again, we do have these massive reserves if we need them.
That's right. That's right. And on that note, state legislatures will have a lot on their plate when they convene for the special session. From fare-free bus rides to rising costs of home heating oil, lawmakers will have much to consider. The special session is expected sometime next week. It will be a final vote for a lame duck's legislature. The newly elected members will be sworn in January. The comptroller reports that the state's budget reserve is estimated at, as you stated, $6.1 billion. I think I need to spread the wealth.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, again, in having talked to all the candidates, I think everybody understands what's going on right now and the conditions of this state. And again, if we need it, the previous amount that was actually in the rainy day fund was $3.3 million. And after this year's surplus, we're now up to $6.1 billion. So we're in better shape. And again, paying those pensions down, which have been out of control for many, many years and was hurting the state in many ways, and
It
now
was.
that our finances are in order a little bit, I think now we can get down to business. And again, we've talked a lot about this, Michelle. The idea it's going to be a rough winter with the inflation, the high gas prices, home heating oil. It's good to know if we need it. It's there, and these guys are quite aware of the situation we're in. So I feel
Well,
like
I'm
all in
hoping
all, good
I'm
shape.
hoping our legislators will, realize the difficulty that people will be going through this winter and what we're going through now. So I'm just hoping, they really kind of come down a couple of notches and get down and dirty with people and see what they're going through so we can fix this problem.
Yeah, well, for sure. Meanwhile, attorneys for Alex Jones are taking up after-trial battles in Connecticut and in Texas to limit his losses after total defamation awards to Sandy Hook families of $1.48 billion. In Austin, Texas, the headquarters of Jones' conspiracy news and merchandising platform InfoWars, a day-long hearing was underway about whether the state cap of $750,000 in punitive damages should apply to that $49 million a jury awarded to the parents of the slain Sandy Hook kids in August, among other arguments. Meanwhile, in Waterbury, a state judge was reading arguments by 8 Sandy Hook families who won a $965 million jury award against Jones this past October about why the court should reject Jones' request to invalidate the jury award because of its sheer size. Connecticut Superior Court Judge Barbara Bellis will hear arguments in early December and Jones' request for a new trial and to invalidate the jury's $965 million award, which Joan calls a substantial miscarriage of justice. Is it, though?
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know where to go with this anymore. Absolutely. It's a lot of money. I mean, I don't even know. How is he possibly going to pay all that? God
Well, you know
knows,
what's even more interesting than that was he filed for bankruptcy, InfoWars, the company that runs InfoWars, but he didn't file personal bankruptcy protection. And so he could end up being solely liable for the money
Ugh,
and not the company,
ouch.
where obviously all the money is being generated from. So
Mhm.
interesting maneuver on his part. Again, listen, this guy should have really tried apologizing and tried to apologize sincerely and then not leave court and make a mockery of it on the InfoWars show. I think that might have
Yeah,
gone a
I
long
agree.
way towards
I
like, hey,
agree.
maybe this guy really is serious about what he's saying now and
Mhm.
he's apologizing. And then he would just turn around, go on a show and call it a kangaroo court and a joke.
I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about this.
No doubt.
In the meantime, the YMCA's 24/7 shelter in Bridgeport is almost at capacity, leaving many homeless people with few options to escape the cold. With temperatures recently dipping into the teens and 20s, social workers in Bridgeport told homeless residents to seek shelter at the South End Community Center on Park Avenue. However, that shelter has reached capacity on Monday and was 2 people short of doing it again on Tuesday. It seems like it keeps getting more and more people want to need
Yeah.
help. This is so the head of the Bridgeport YMCA, Carmen Colon, stated that I think more people are, they need more help, obviously.
Right.
Ned Lamont is expected to activate the state's severe cold weather protocol, which has included setting up the system to transport homeless people to the shelters if temperatures continue to drop. In the meantime, social workers are asking those calling 211 to consider other options, like asking friends or family if they would be willing to offer them a place to stay. Sometimes workers would be directly contact family members of a caller to check if they would be willing to house them. This is devastating to hear.
Yeah.
This is especially with this cold winter, and it's already starting to get cold. I know people that have lived in shelters. I know people that have, and you think about these people. It's like, oh, they lost. They're on drugs. They can't work. They're lazy. It's not the case at all. It's just people living paycheck to paycheck, and once one paycheck is gone, you're in
Yeah.
that situation. And so the state, our governor really needs to consider this.
Well, we also saw record numbers of rental evictions coming
Yes.
off the pandemic. And so, like you said, again, sometimes we make assumptions about who these homeless people are. These might just be people that got squeezed out. There's a massive housing shortage in Connecticut.
Right.
Bob Duff and I are both realtors. We could tell you, we're looking at about 50% of the housing market that we need in this state. So it's not like there's places people could even move into right now, but certainly I think the state's going to have to step up and figure some things out, because the temperatures are dipping and it's getting a lot colder. And, again, got a lot of money in the reserves. Might be time to do something with that to keep these people off the streets, because boy,
Absolutely.
especially this time of the year, I don't obviously winter, but the holidays,
Yeah.
right? Like we
Exactly.
can't have our citizens walking the streets in the cold. That is just absolutely awful.
And it's wonderful that
Meanwhile,
we help doing.
it's
wonderful we help during the holidays,
right?
But you know what? How about all year through too?
Yeah, true. Especially though this time of the year. But yes, all year round.
Yes.
Got to be cognizant of that kind of stuff. A new survey was conducted by the Connecticut Education Association, and it showed Connecticut teachers are faced with stress, burnout, and shortages. According to the CEA survey of nearly 6,000 Connecticut educators, findings show a wave of dissatisfaction with working conditions, high levels of frustration and burnout, plus other serious issues leading to teachers leaving the profession. The survey showed that 74% of educators say that compared to a few years ago, they're more likely to retire or leave the profession early. 6 in 10 educators say public schools are headed in the wrong direction. 72% expressed dissatisfaction with the working conditions. 7 in 10 are expecting higher levels of frustration and burnout. 98% of our educators identify teacher stress and burnout as their top issue. 96% acknowledged staffing shortages within the school. 95% talked about the lack of respect for teachers and for students' mental health. I know that's something that you've brought up, having worked in school before.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I was talking to, asking Senator Duff about that as well. The teachers are stressed. And I heard that this school year started with a bunch of substitute teachers. They didn't have enough staff. This situation has to be rectified immediately. There has to be something done. I think teachers are just too overworked. They're expected to do, I think, things beyond their level, if you will, of expectation. And there's too many kids in the classrooms. We are, public school, great, but something has to be done. The teachers are suffering, so the kids suffer. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, 100%. Now, you talked about the idea of red tape, the administrators are clearly letting these folks down. And I think that is something that is going to need a closer look and a little more examination.
And that's the thing with government, anything with government is always bureaucracy. There's always red tape. And if we can cut through that, I think we'll save a lot of money. We'll save time. We'll save health. We'll save mental health. We'll save people. But unfortunately, I hate to say it, but government likes to subsidize problems as opposed to solving them. But
you do say that often, and 100 years of the same problem, there could be something to that.
Yeah. But there's actually still one more election, just like the midterms we had, to talk about this November. The Secretary of State made official announcement about who won the race for Kid Governor. Channel News. I love it. Channel 8 News was there as students at Monroe Elementary School gathered to find out if fifth graders, who participated, and one fifth grader, Ellie Mendez, won. The Kid Governor program is a civics program for fifth graders where they learn about state government and elections and voting by electing a real kid governor. Coordinator Nicole Petruzzello said 7 finalists were chosen. A campaign bus crisscrossed the state over the past 2 weeks. The big announcement finally came, and Ellie won.
Yay for Ellie Mendez.
Smile. Oh, it was great. With a big smile, she threw her arms in the air in celebration. And as happy winning the election made her, Ellie ran on a platform of dealing with anxiety and depression. That's a little oxymoron there, right?
Well, especially in light of the story we just talked about where the teachers are severely stressed out.
Overworked.
As you just said, the
Exactly.
kids are feeling it. This kid
Right.
won based on that platform. My
Right.
goodness.
Right.
Right? Like, that's
It's
a pretty
huge
telling
problem
thing.
in this state, in this country. It's a huge problem, and hence the drug problem, hence the addiction problem. We need to focus on mental health. There's got to be somebody in government that has to say, okay, you know what? Let's start legislation on mental health in this country, this
Yep.
state. If we don't, it's just going to get worse, and it's going to just spiral down.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back on Connecticut Politics Live. More headlines coming up next.
Want to have your show on CT Politics? If you produce a show on CT political issues or commentary and want to play it to the world, contact us now at ctpolitics.tv. We'd love to have you part of the team.
And we are back. We'll wrap things up with a few more headlines. And then again, we're going to talk about Michelle's trip to Florida,
How
which
fun.
was very interesting and some cool stuff.
Yeah.
And that'll be coming out of that. Doctors at Connecticut Children's are raising awareness this holiday season about dangerous toys that are gifted to children. Roughly 200,000 children are rushed to the emergency room for toy-related injuries every year. And the worst part is they're all preventable as long as parents have the information they need to keep the hazardous toys in their kids' hands. Inflated balloons are not a hazard to kids, but deflated remnants are among the most common choking hazards for children. Senator Richard Blumenthal joined doctors at Connecticut Children's to highlight the new national report entitled Trouble in Toyland. It serves as a warning to parents looking for nice toys. Emergency rooms across the country last year reported 198,000 toy-related injuries overall. There were 9 deaths. 40% of those injuries, Michelle, involved children under the age of 5. I just can't help but think about when we were younger and we were literally outside throwing something called lawn darts at each other. You know, where were these guys then?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know. You know, look, there's so much talk about how, you know, we kind of helicopter parent our kids and we protect them a little bit too much at times. And look, I think that, you know, there's a fine line between being overprotective and just being protective. And you certainly got to be protective. I mean, I have 4 children myself.
Yes.
I try to be protective, but at the same time, they do have to live and they do have to experience things.
Absolutely.
Certainly not choking hazards. So again, I think some of this is on our government and the standards for which they test these products before they hit the open market. Do they pose a health risk? And here's the other thing. You know, it's interestingly enough, I'm dealing with an issue with Lowe's Home Improvement here in Connecticut, who sold me a home warranty on a product, and it doesn't cover anything about the damaged product. And so companies are going out there and are selling a bag of nonsense to people. And that's why there's places like the Better Business Bureau. I just earlier today, I'm excited to announce I filed a complaint against Lowe's. And I think we need to see more of that. If you feel like you've been wronged, do something about it. That's why the Better Business Bureau is there. You can report on things. Maybe you're looking for resolution, or maybe you just want to out somebody that's doing something that's not right, that could potentially hurt somebody else. And that's what it's all about.
And Joe, I'm going to go there. Enough producing in China. I'm, you know, not for anything, but how about producing in this country? How about we pay our people a little bit more and make a quality item? It's a novel idea. What do you think?
Well, I think especially when you look at some of the paint that they put on products. And, you know, again, just the human rights violations and a lot of the things that they're producing in China and in other places overseas. You know, everybody likes to talk about America first. I don't understand why that's frowned upon in this country.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be. Unfortunately, it's become very divisive rhetoric, which it shouldn't be. We should be promoting and pushing American-built products to Americans.
It should be the number one issue right now.
Yeah.
Elect me. But you know what? My number one issue is to promote America first, bring back jobs
Absolutely.
and manufacturing and all, absolutely.
Well, again, and we also have a better handle on the things that are being produced if they're produced in this country and then
Absolutely.
transported in this country. It's a little bit easier to track
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. You don't have to worry about the bureaucracy of dealing with the Chinese government, which
The
is
supply
certainly
chain,
no friend
right.
of ours,
Right.
right? Supply chain issue. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why we should definitely be pushing America as a place for production. Obviously, just in addition to just more jobs in this country. And we should be a manufacturer. That's what we should be doing. We should be in the
It'll help our
business of
economy. It'll
producing.
help everything. Absolutely.
Yep.
Well,
I'm glad
today,
you went there, Michelle. I'm glad you
I
did
did.
it.
Thank you. Okay. I
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
that. Thank you. Sometimes it's a little, touchy subject, but it has to be spoken of. This country is in decline. And,
I think when you take away the slanted rhetoric that goes with that, and you're
yes,
just having a legitimate conversation about putting America first and American businesses first,
right.
take some of the spin out of it. And it's like, well, that is a good idea and
Yeah.
it would benefit all Americans. And I mean, isn't that what we're looking for to benefit us? We help everybody around the world,
Absolutely.
everybody at all times, to the point where we almost put their needs ahead of our own. And
Right.
when you're looking at the way some of these countries are now dealing with inflation, I do think it's time for America to focus on America and doing
That's right.
what's best for everybody that lives here.
And can you imagine officials who want to be elected or have already been elected actually forget the rhetoric and just talk about, I'm doing this, it's going to happen, and I'm going to push it as much as I can. I'm going to fight. That's all we ask. We understand that, it's difficult to do things in government, but
Yep.
if you have that will and that's why you're running and this is why we elect our leaders, I think it'll be a whole game changer.
Absolutely.
It's been cold today, though. Did you notice it was cold? Actually, today wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
It kind of went up. The temperature went up. I know. So today, November 22nd, Tuesday, we had a high of 49. Tonight, obviously, it's getting colder. I think the low of 28 degrees tonight, but it's been beautiful, sunny days, and I think the rest of the week will be like that way. Be that way. Tomorrow, a high of 51, low of
Nice.
26, but all sunny skies, I think, until the weekend.
Oh, that is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's nice.
So I'm thinking some turkey, some
Absolutely.
maybe going outside, throwing the old football around a little bit. Seems like it's going to be that kind of a pleasant day, and then a nice long weekend. Do you do Black Friday? Do you shop on that day?
I love to do Black Friday.
Do you?
When I was young and my kids were, my husband was, everybody was still asleep, I'd go up really early and go, and I loved it. But as you get older, you're like, I want to sleep in a little bit longer. But the deals are definitely early in the morning. You have to go. So
Yeah.
all
I've
right.
noticed a lot more companies are doing like a week-long Black
Yes.
Friday sale, which I think maybe that's just sort of to head off some of the crowds and some of the,
And
violence.
Cyber Monday made it easier for
Yeah.
everybody there too. So
Yeah, it
just
certainly did.
just click. Always the
All right.
fun, right?
So listen, before we wrap up today's
Yeah.
show, you had a few days off. Big thank you
did.
to Dr. Amy Chai, whose campaign you managed, and in return, she filled in for you on
She was
this
awesome.
program.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the trip to Florida. What were you doing down there? What did you see? And what can we expect to come out of
Sure.
this?
Well, I went to Pensacola, Florida. Actually, my son goes to college there. And so the college, every Thanksgiving, a week before Thanksgiving, has something called the Turkey Bowl. So all semester, there's two teams, and all these, obviously, I was going to say children, but they're adults, college kids. They're all from different states. So what I found interesting was my son's team. It's a soccer. So they played a soccer game. The Hornets against the Stingrays. Sorry. So my son was a goalie, and there's 2 other Connecticut boys. So 3 Connecticut boys representing their team. I thought it was really fascinating. It was really cool. And it was a wonderful time. It was just a little cold for me. It was a little chilly. I think we brought the cold down, as everybody was saying. But it's a beautiful area. If you've ever been to Pensacola Beach, if you've never been, excuse me, I recommend it highly. The white sand, the water is aqua blue. It's amazing. It's funny because once I saw that beach sand, I really couldn't go back to brown sand. I'm so spoiled.
Hey, nothing wrong with enjoying the high life, you know.
Absolutely. But in the spirit of Thanksgiving, it's something called the Turkey Bowl. So the 2 teams, they went at it, and the Hornets, the 3 Connecticut boys team, won, and it was great to see that. And I know in Thanksgiving we usually celebrate high school football. We go to football games, but I think in the spirit of the World Cup that is happening right now, I thought it would be fun to go down and film a little bit and just show you a little bit of the sights, and we'll bring that on maybe on Thanksgiving Day. And I don't know about you. Are you a soccer fan at all, or?
I try, you
Okay.
know,
Mhm.
I'm a sports fan. I know obviously it's a big deal right now. I'm trying to pay as much attention to it as I can.
Right.
I
Right.
suggested earlier today to some friends of mine, they should either make smaller fields or just put more people on it.
It's yeah.
I'd like to see a little more scoring.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
That part of it is true, because basketball is like really, back and forth. It's great, and so same thing with hockey and football, a little bit, and baseball, and then you get soccer. Absolutely, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, are you going to score yet, or what's happening here? But then when they do score, it's exciting. But the U.S. played Wales, and they tied them 1-1. And I believe the U.S. is going to be playing. Oh, forgive me, I forget the next team. But I believe they were going to be playing Iran as well next week, which
Nice.
should be interesting. So it's fun to follow this. I was doing a little research with the Iranian team, because a lot of these teams are just the World Cup is in Qatar, an amazing city, and it just seems like the area they usually congregate in, it's big, up-to-do cities. They're beautiful. I think the U.S. lost. Forgive me, the tout for having the World Cup here to Qatar.
Yeah.
I don't think what happened. I think obviously politics too, but anyway, with Iran, there was a young student who, I think she was a 22-year-old girl, who refused to wear her, and I believe they're called burqas, but her headpiece.
Yeah, the hijab.
And the government, and they killed her.
Yeah.
And so the soccer players were protesting. The whole country's protesting. I think finally we're starting to wake up to this foolishness. It's one thing to want to have a good belief and a religion, what have you, but if you just like this country, we don't realize how good we have it. When we believe in something, we have that freedom. These countries don't.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful to think about that when you're saying, oh, America's a terrible country. It's not. You live in the best country in the world. So I had to digress there a little bit. But in the spirit of the World Cup, I thought it'd be fun to bring, a little bit of college action to Connecticut politics.
Well, we appreciate you turning your vacation into a bet. Just shows how important this show is to you. And so, we will get that out on Thanksgiving Day. So
Awesome.
Welcome back, Michelle. Thank
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed a few days off. And again, big thank you to Dr. Amy Chai.
Yes.
You can get all the latest headlines concerning Connecticut by visiting ctpolitics.tv/headline-news. Make sure you follow at CT Politics TV on social media. We'll be back tomorrow night at 5 o'clock for Connecticut Politics Live with Joe and Michelle. I'm Joe Aguirre for Michelle Botello. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow.